just want to be very clear that we continue to be incredibly disappointed of the decision to not have this interview videotaped and then released to the American public.
Good evening and welcome to Civonix. Tonight, we have a developing story out of Washington D.C, a highly anticipated House Oversight Committee deposition with former Attorney General Pam Bondi took an unexpected turn today. Bondi, who served during a controversial period of the Trump administration, refused to testify under oath and refused to have the proceedings filmed. Even more shocking, she repeatedly refused to answer any questions regarding former President Donald Trump's connection to the Jeffrey Epstein files. Let's dive into the details. This morning, Bondi was scheduled to appear before the House Oversight Committee. The focus of the inquiry? The Department of Justice's handling of the Epstein files during her tenure. However, the session quickly derailed. According to Democratic representatives present, Bondi, accompanied by a current DOJ lawyer acting in a personal capacity, stonewalled the committee. Let's hear from the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, Robert Garcia, who spoke to the press immediately after the session.
I want to be very clear that we continue to be incredibly disappointed of the decision to not have this interview videotaped and then released to the American public. The second thing we asked Chairman Comer is to ensure that this interview is under oath. We understand the Attorney General is going to be there answering questions from Congress, but it should have been under oath and it should be videotaped. We obviously have a lot of questions as it relates to why only 50% of the files have been released, why many of the survivors were literally put in danger by the way the files were released, that private information should never have been released, and of course, why this continues to be some type of cover-up. And so those are our questions. There's many questions. We'll be here for the next few hours, but it's really important that we get to the truth and that the Attorney General answers the questions truthfully. And we'll continue to push, of course, for a videotape release transcript for everyone.
The refusal to testify under oath and on camera is significant, especially given the gravity of the Epstein case. But what's perhaps more troubling is the alleged intervention by the DOJ lawyer. Representative Garcia noted that he asked Bondi 5 times about her conversations with Donald Trump regarding the Epstein files, and every time she refused to answer. The DOJ lawyer, Garcia stated, repeatedly interjected to prevent her from responding. Democratic Congresswoman Melanie Stansbury also weighed in, highlighting the sheer audacity of the DOJ's involvement.
One of the Department of Justice attorneys intervened and said that she did not have to answer the question because it was a voluntary interview, and said, in fact, quote, "We don't even have to assert privilege because of that," and said, quote, "We refuse to provide answers." That means that the United States Department of Justice is intervening on behalf of Pam Bondi to stop her from answering questions about what happened in the cover-up of this case and her conversations with Donald Trump, and is asserting that she does not have to answer questions because she is not required to, because she is not being deposed under oath. This is a cover-up. This will be remembered as the largest cover-up likely in American history, and it is clear that this interview is a smokescreen to try to show the American people that they are complying while they are not. Now, I also want to point out that there is not a single Republican in the room besides the chairman.
So what did Bondi actually say? In her opening statement, she defended the department's record, claiming an unprecedented commitment to transparency and noting the production of nearly 3 million pages of material. However, critics point out that an estimated 5 to 10 million documents are still being withheld. Crucially, Bondi sought to distance herself from the specific handling of the files, pointing the finger at her deputy, Todd Blanche, who happens to be Donald Trump's former personal lawyer. Let's look at Bondi's opening statement.
I think we're really hopeful that she's not going to talk about the Dow today. We hope that there's no deflection. To Charlene's point, I think This case has always been about more than Epstein and Maxwell survivors, and we don't want to send a chilling effect that survivors can't come forward. And so far, the DOJ has done everything they possibly can to intimidate survivors. And so we hope that today is actually a day where maybe she's had some reckoning and maybe there is some transparency now that she doesn't have the threat of being fired.
She also threw Blanche under the bus when asked about the controversial transfer of Ghislaine Maxwell to a less secure facility, claiming she had no knowledge of it and referring questions to him. Adding to the controversy is the stark contrast in the treatment of the Epstein survivors. The Oversight Democrats noted that while survivors' names were unredacted in the released files, with one name mentioned over 500 times, the names of Epstein's co-conspirators were heavily redacted. Survivors were present outside the hearing room today, demanding justice and transparency. Let's hear from them.
An Epstein survivor now, Charlene, what is one thing you want the public to know during today's Pam Bondi testimony?
I want the public to know that we're here for actually the public. We are here for you because not only do we want the truth and transparency, but the public deserves it as well. There are so many leads. This is a global sex trafficking ring, and we need to protect the next generation from this happening again.
What kind of leads are you talking about that the public may not be aware of?
Well, I have this right here, and this says the prominent names, and I'm just going to read them to you. Trump, Weinstein, Glenn Dubin, Prince Andrews, Jess Staley, Leon Black, Les Wexner, Alan Dershowitz, Bill Clinton, Howard Lutnick, William Barr, and I'd like to add Dyke and Khan.
Thank you so much.
Rochard specifically mentioned prominent names she once investigated, including Trump, Weinstein, Prince Andrew, Bill Clinton, and William Barr, among others. To amplify their voices, survivors launched a new website today, survivorsisters.org, to share their stories and demand accountability. The actions of Pam Bondi and the DOJ today raise serious questions. Why the refusal to testify under oath? Why the refusal to be filmed? Why the blanket refusal to answer questions about Donald Trump? And why the continued redaction of co-conspirators' names while survivors' identities are exposed? As Congresswoman Stansbury stated, the Epstein saga could end today. Trump's DOJ could release all the files. They could arrest known perpetrators. But instead, at every turn, they're blocking this investigation, breaking the law, and choosing to protect the president and Epstein's friends. The American public, and most importantly, the survivors, deserve answers. This is a story we will continue to follow closely. Thank you for joining us on Civonix. Have a good day.